Welcome to The Spy Who Loved Me. That's me with the gun, Roger Moore. I play James Bond. This is not so much a commentary in the sense of I'm going to discuss the film you're going to watch scene by scene, because quite honestly I don't remember it scene by scene. And looking at it after 20, 30 years, it comes as a surprise to me sometimes. So rather I'm going to treat it as if we're having a conversation, a one-sided conversation, because you can't answer back and you can't ask questions. And I would lie anyway if I were to give you answers to the questions that you would most likely ask. I would just like to try and make it as enjoyable as possible and as easy as possible. So be like me, take your shoes off, sit back and have a glass of wine. The young man here, Jeremy Bulloch, turns up in other Bond films as assistant to Q, to Desmond Llewellyn. And Jeremy Bulloch I first met in about 1962 or 3 when I was making The Saint, and he was shooting on the next stage with Cliff Richards, and he was one of Cliff Richards' group of young ones. The captain of the submarine, another actor, Brian Marshall, that I worked with on a number of occasions, but not in Bonds.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, put him through. Good morning, sir. No, First Sea Lord.
Here we have George Baker, very good actor, and a good friend of mine. We made a film, North Sea Hijacked, together. Or Folks, as it was called sometimes.
Lost one of our nuclear submarines.
What? The submarine Potemkin disappeared without trace? But what a catastrophe, Comrade Cham. Yes, of course, I'll assign our best agent immediately. Romanich, where is Agent Triple X?
On leave, General. At the People's Rest and Recuperation Center.
This is Michael Billington. Michael Billington rather sadly died in 2005.
As soon as my mission is accomplished.
One time he was considered as a possible 007.
I have to be in Austria tonight.
5 more minutes.
The lady, of course, stroking his chest is Barbara Bach.
Agent Triple X, calling Agent Triple X. You will report to headquarters immediately. Agent Triple X, acknowledge and verify.
I'd known Barbara actually in California before she made this.
This is Triple X. Message received and...
She was a very, very beautiful girl.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister. I understand the gravity of the situation. Yes, I'll put our best man on it at once. Goodbye.
My friend Bernie Lee, who played M in many of the Bond movies. And my old classmate, Lois Maxwell, classmate from RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. I remember shooting this scene because Ken Adam was standing by. Well, he built the sets, he designed them. And we had a sort of a running feud going, a friendship, not anything else. It was very difficult to be serious about doing anything while Ken was around.
What's happened? Where are you going?
Sorry, darling, something came up.
But James, I need you.
So does England.
It's a wonderful color combination. And I remember Ken was standing by outside, laughing like mad as I got into skis, standing in salt and gypsum, and pretended to push off. I would be a desperate liar if I were to say that this was me in these long shots and me about to jump over the cliff, and in fact, me jumping over the cliff. This was the first time I'd come across Willy Bogner and his ski team. And you can tell the camera movement. This is Willy actually skiing, holding the camera, looking through the lens and never really looking where he's going himself. Quite an extraordinary skier. I believe that is the one skiing backwards was John Eves, Canadian. And this was shot before we started principal photography. And this is Rick Sylvester, whose hobby was climbing up mountains. He got fed up with walking down mountains after climbing up, so he decided to take up jumping off mountains once he had climbed up there. And it turned out to be a very profitable business for him. The reaction in the cinema when this flag opened was quite extraordinary. It was also quite a dangerous stunt for Rick, because as the skis came off, one of them just clipped the canopy.
Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest.
This was the first time that I'd actually worked with Maurice Binder, directing, as he was in charge of the titles. So it was interesting to get over there and
I wasn't looking, but somehow you found me. I tried to hide from your love, but like heaven above.
I think this is the first time that Bond actually, I could be wrong, but I think it's the first time that Bond actually appeared in titles. It showed you that Cubby got his money's worth out of me. That he couldn't get on the backgammon table.
Nobody does it quite the way you do. Why'd you have to be so good? The way that you hold me.
The director of photography, Claude Renoir, part of the Renoir, the Jean Renoir and Augustine Renoir family. Very, very talented cinematographer. And of course the production designed by Ken Adam. One and only Ken Adam, the best. The Spy Who Loved Me, I thought, was a great title for a Bond movie. The title song, I think, was, of my Bonds, one of the best. In fact, this happened to be my favorite Bond film to make, and I think to look at. The song was very good. Nobody does it better. Suggestive, modesty prohibits me from saying but true. I think a beautifully designed set, there's the simplicity of it, and you're given the idea of the depth of it by having a small chair placed against a back wall all on its own.
You sent for me, Comrade General.
Good morning.
I think each frame, thanks to Ken Adam and to Claude Renoir, has the quality of a painting.
For you to find out. We have one lead. A connection in Cairo. You leave tonight.
Will that be all, Comrade General?
There is one more thing. I regret to inform you, Major, that Agent Sergei Barzov has been killed. On a mission at Berngarten in the Austrian Alps.
A tragic occurrence, Comrade General.
It had not escaped our notice that you and Agent Barzov had been more than friends for some time. I'm very sorry.
How did he die?
We haven't all the details yet, but it appears he became involved in a British Secret Service operation.
Please keep me informed, Comrade General. I should very much like to meet whoever was responsible for his death.
This was shot in Faslane in Scotland. This is the British nuclear submarine base. And it was an absolutely fascinating shoot. We went up on, I think, a Saturday night. And, we shot on the Sunday and the Monday and left on Monday night. It was just a 2-day shoot. We had an awful lot to do. This sequence, actually, that we're seeing now, part of it was shot after we'd been in Faslane, and while we were coming back from Faslane, I started feeling rather peculiar. And I had shingles, which was odd because it seems to be an old person's disease, but in actual fact, anybody can get it. It has something to do with the chickenpox virus. And I remember saying to Louis Gilbert, the director, I don't think I can actually be shot on today. He said, I'll shoot over your back, so don't worry, because my eyes are closed up with the discomfort and pain of this malady.
Well, this, I take it, is Ranger's prearranged course to a patrol area.
That's right.
The gentleman on the left of screen, of course, was Bob Brown. Bob Brown, who turned up later as M. This is the first time that my Bond was actually seen in uniform.
God.
When we were shooting the Faslane sequence, Louis Gilbert, we had the captain of the base who was sort of advising us what actually happened, or he was the liaison officer. And a submarine was supposed to leave, and Louis said, well, what happens when a submarine leaves? He said, well, there's a farewell party. What, gin and tonic? Said Louis. No, the captain of the base comes down to see the submarine off. Ah, do you think we could see a bit of this farewell party? Said Louis. And so the liaison officer shouts down to the captain of the submarine, or to one of the crew of the submarine. He says, go down and get your captain and tell him to put on a sailor suit, meaning do not come up without buttons. And the captain came down. And it was wonderful to see Louis sort of directing all these very high-ranking naval officers. So, no, move a bit over there. Shh, quiet, please, we're shooting. And it was freezing cold. It was freezing cold up in Faslane. And in the evening, after the first day of shooting, we had dinner and gone to the bar in this motel where we were all staying. And there was a little glass thing, sort of press for fire, behind me. And I said, oh, and I tapped it. I didn't know it was very thin glass, and the glass broke. And bells started to ring, and iron shutters came down on the bar, almost chopping people's hands off as they reached for their half pints. And this little Scottish waitress came up and she said, you've got to evacuate. And I said, but I set the alarm off. You've got to evacuate, the alarm's gone. And so fire engines arrived. Absolutely terrible. And eventually we all went to bed. Not the fireman and the waitress, but the crew. They all dispersed and went to bed. And this was the beginning of having the shingles. I went into a deep, deep sleep, almost a coma. I overslept. And in the morning I was awakened by the banging on the door, the first assistant, the manager of the hotel. And I got up and when I arrived on the set, and June Randall, the continuity script lady, said, "What happened to you last night?" I said, "Well, I set off the alarm." She said, no, I'm not talking about 10 o'clock. She said, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the alarms went off again. And apparently a commercial traveler who had gone to bed early had been awakened by the false alarm and couldn't go back to sleep. So at 2 o'clock, he got up and set off a fire alarm himself and had everybody up. But I never got up. I didn't hear it. Now, this is the first time we see in the film the villain. Wonderful German actor Curt Jürgens, who became a very, very good friend of mine. In fact, one of the reasons that I moved to Switzerland, because he had a beautiful house in Stadt, which he loaned to me for a couple of weeks. And the following year, I decided to rent a house there and eventually bought. We were also neighbors in the south of France, in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. The actor with glasses, Cyril Chaps, who was also a neighbor of mine when I lived in Stanmore, whilst I was making a television series, The Persuaders. Looking at this again after all these years, I stare in wonderment at the brilliance of Ken Adam. Extraordinary sets. And this again, the miniature work, Derek Medding. This wonderful piece of music actually was John Glenn had laid in the cutting, in the rough assembly of the film while we were shooting. And Marvin Hamlish elected for it to remain. And I loved it so much, this piece. When I did a film later shooting in Chicago with Brian Forbes directing, I asked Brian if I could have this. The character I played was a psychiatrist, and this was the music he listened to. This actor is Milton Reed. And the first time we see in the film Richard Keel, Jaws.
Shandor, you will go with him. Obey him. Every person who even comes into contact with that microfilm is to be eliminated.
And that was the first time we ever see the steel teeth. He had a steely smile. Boom, boom.
Stand by for helicopter takeoff. All personnel clear the flight deck platform.
This is what I think makes Bond films worth looking at. The spectacle. They should not look so pleased with themselves.
Cancel transfer of $20 million. Inform next of kin that
Good
the
model
tragic
work.
accident has resulted in the deaths of Professor Markowitz and Dr. Beckman. The funeral was at sea.
Well, this is Bond getting the hump, you might say. There are more comfortable modes of transport, I think, than riding a camel. But as an actor, you have to do most everything. They are unfortunate beasts. They have foul, worse breath than I imagine the villains have. They really all have halitosis, and they also spit at you.
شكرا عفوا
تفضل.
Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
May the peace of Allah descend upon this magnificent abode and allow a poor traveler to enter.
May the hospitality of these miserable quarters be sufficient.
Edward de Souza. This is the equivalent of what happens in other Bond films, having a bevy of beautiful girls sitting around a pool. And it really is the sort of the fantasy idea of what a sheikh's tent looks like. Shades of Raymond Navarro. Shooting in Egypt was a little bit of a shock after being able to swim every day in the Mediterranean, in Sardinia, while we were shooting there, because we went straight to Cairo from Sardinia, with a stop off in Rome on the way. It was a shock because of the heat and the dryness. It was not the first time I'd been to Egypt, however. I went there first in the 60s for a film and television festival, which was where I met David Hedison, who turned up in the first Bond I did, Felix Leiter. And in between, he came back to England and did a guest appearance in A Saint.
Are you quite sure I can't persuade you to stay the night?
When one is in Egypt, one should delve deeply into its treasures.
I think that each director had his own style, own approach, way of communicating with yourself and with the crew. When Cubby was around, it also made a difference. Harry, when Harry was not there, it was a little different.
Mr. Bond?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, the door was open.
Olga Becerra, who is the lady in the scene, was an actress who worked a great deal in Rome.
Mr. Fakish asked me to entertain you.
Reminds me of another film that I was once doing where we have to kiss as Olga and I do in this. But the director had said to me, or said to the girl, because you normally don't kiss in the rehearsal, because makeup will have to be changed and everything else. So the director said, would you mind if we, because of the camera angle, if we could just see the kiss? And, well, my goodness me, he shouldn't have done it. From 6 feet away, her lips parted, and a tongue like a python shot across the room and forced its way between my teeth.
Is he meeting someone?
I'm not complaining.
Sorry, I cannot answer that question.
Why, I think you can.
You should never get too familiar with Bond early on. You end up with a bullet in your back. Now, this is Milton Reed. In this fight sequence, Milton has to go over the edge. And he grabs at my tie, which I knock out of his hand, and he falls backwards. They rehearsed while I was shooting other things. They rehearsed this sequence with Milton. They said to him, you know, and Bob Simmons said, you're going to have to, you know, come off the roof. And it was 7 stories high. And he said, oh, don't worry. He said, we're going to put boxes in. He said, well, how high are you putting the boxes? They said, well, they'll be up about 5 stories. He said, but why does it have to be that far to the boxes that I have to drop? He said, well, you see, we need the sound of this man screaming as he goes backwards. He said, well, couldn't I just do a short fall and a long scream? Of course he didn't go onto boxes. He fell onto the ground. This is Bond. It's our way of getting rid of actors without paying them. Yeah, Milton shouldn't have worried too much because Jackie Cooper, a stuntman, did the fall for him. This is the most magnificent sight. Giza, the pyramids and the Sphinx. Our shots of the pyramids were the first we did when we got to Cairo. It also happened to fall on my birthday. And George Crawford, our catering manager, had a great treat for us. It was moving underneath the silver foil on the tables set up in a tent by the pyramids. It was lobster that had been exposed to the Egyptian heat without refrigeration for about a week before we got there. It could have finished filming there and then if anybody had taken a mouthful. To make up for the bad lobster, they had a belly dancer to amuse us all, being my birthday. It was Happy Belly Button to You. Fekesh is played by an actor called Nadim Salwala. Nadim's daughter went on to play the daughter in an absolutely fabulous, very funny series that Jennifer Saunders wrote and produced.
On the far bank of the Nile. I am the faithful warden at the foot of his lord. So faithful, so vigilant, so near him that he gave me his faith, my own. I am a pharaoh's companion, and I am he, the pharaoh.
They always made these things that Jaws bit through out of licorice. But even so, he couldn't put much pressure in the biting because that steel was cutting into his gums. It was funny to see Richard doing this because he is the most gentle man, would not hurt a fly. He goes on to continue to be a villain in Moonraker, but the gentlest side is shown, as anybody will tell you that has seen Moonraker. And I hope you that are watching and listening to this will see Moonraker. There was a long, I can't remember exactly how long, but a long gap between the end of Man with the Golden Gun and the starting shooting of The Spy Who Loved Me, which was due to the fact that Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltburn were dissolving their partnership. Which is very sad. It happens in the best of families there. But it was even sadder for me because I lost out on a couple of other films that I could have done. One of the things I'd been offered a role in A Bridge Too Far by the time, and it was, I couldn't do that. That is show business, the timing of one film and another. I remember an old card telling me that as an actor you should accept everything you're offered because, as he said, when you're not working, dear boy, you're not an actor. And if you should be fortunate enough to be offered 2 jobs at the same time, take the one that pays most money.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.
This again is typically Bond. I can't think of any nightclub in Cairo or anywhere in the Middle East where you have to go in a dinner jacket. But Bond, the word Bond is synonymous with dinner jackets. It's everyone's idea of chic. Even the sheiks.
What an unexpected pleasure. Welcome.
But dressing properly, I remember one place you really do have to dress is for a royal performance. I was at a royal command film performance at which the Queen Mother was going to be in attendance, and there was an American actress standing next to me in the lineup. On the other side of her was James Mason. And she was very, very excited about the fact that the Queen Mother was coming. And she was muttering away, oh, how wonderful this is going to be. Oh, my God, I'm so excited. Oh, it's going to be, wow. Oh, I can't wait. And they finally said, Her Majesty has arrived at the theatre. Oh, she's coming up the stairs now. Look. Oh, what a darling hairdo she has. Look at that beautiful tiara. And her voice is getting louder and more strident. I said, please, calm it down. And James Mason said, can't you shut her up? And I said, it's fairly impossible. And she was really loud. And the Queen Mother put her hand forward. It was grabbed by this American actress and squeezed between both her hands, and the Queen was trying to withdraw her hand without success. And the actress gushed on about how darling the Queen Mother looked and how beautiful her tiara was and what a wonderful hairdo and what a pretty dress. And do you know what else I'm going to be singing tonight? And then she proceeded to sing the song that she was going to do in the royal show. Oh dear, it was one of those days that I thought if the Tower of London still had a chopping block, my head would have been on it.
Mr. Calber, my name is Bond, James Bond.
Max Kalber is played by Vernon Dobchev.
I had an appointment with a Mr. Fekesh.
Well?
He won't be joining you. You have something I'm interested in buying.
Just a moment. I would like to bid for it, too. You forgot your drink, Mr. Bond.
You'll note that I'm drinking a martini, which I didn't order myself, which I never did in any of the Bonds I made order a martini, but everybody else seemed to know the Bond drank martini shaken, not stirred.
Contestants at least be permitted to view the article for sale.
I'd never met Louis Gilbert before shooting The Spy Who Loved Me. I'd met him before we actually got on the floor to shoot because we were discussing it. But I think we had an immediate good reaction to one another. We quickly found out that we had the same sense of humor. And he had, of course, worked a great deal with other people I knew. Kenny Moore, who was a very good friend of mine. I'd been best man at his wedding. And with Michael Caine, he had directed Alfie. He also directed Shirley Valentine after this, and educating reader with marvelous Julie Walters. Lewis worked with some very, very fine leading ladies, such as Pauline Collins, Virginia McKenna. He made Ferry to Hong Kong, of course, with Curt Jürgens. And Peter Hunt had also worked as editor on a number of films with Lewis. Peter Hunt was really the editor that set the tone of Bond, because he was editor on the first, on Dr. No, and he set a style, and because he knew the character so well, having been editor and then and doing some second unit, that when they did the George Lazenby Bond on Her Majesty's Secret Service, Peter was elected to direct it. And I thought did a very fine job. I thought it was a wonderful piece of direction. I worked with Peter on the series The Persuaders with Tony Curtis. We remained friends until his rather sad death a couple of years ago. Before starting The Spy Who Loved Me, I of course made Shot at the Devil with Peter. Peter had also directed Gold, which we had shot in the mines in South Africa.
Talbot was called to the phone. What happened?
He was cut off. Permanently.
The microfilm? Where is it?
Search me.
He must have it, or you wouldn't be here.
You don't know who he is. He's on our records, a professional killer.
Cold yours? Make no mistake, Mr. Bond. I want that microfilm. And I'm going to get it.
Unless I get it first.
This is the beginning, or this is part of the shooting that we did by the temples of Karnak. We had moved downriver, or upriver rather, to Luxor, where we were based. I think interesting framing. Lewis is such a good director. I think it's interesting that there is this sort of contrast of comedy and seriousness that Lewis manages to pull off in this. I think this is one of the reasons this is my favorite Bond of the ones I made. When you see, or when you saw Richard Keel moving along the top, it was actually Martin Grace who doubled me, who was doubling Richard Keel. And because Martin had the ability to walk like Richard Keel, with one shoulder slightly down and the head. Very good. He was very, very good mimic. And he was about 18 inches shorter than Richard, but it worked. Now, I think I should tell you that before we started shooting in Egypt, we had to submit the script to the Egyptian authorities, the Egyptian government. And the Minister of Culture approved it. But we had a representative sitting on the set all the time to make sure that we did not deviate from what was written and what they had approved. And in the shooting of this sequence, at the end of it, when the scaffolding collapses, Lewis said, what are you going to say? I said, the script doesn't say anything. He said, can you think of something? We need a line. I said, yeah, I've got a line. I should say, as everything collapses around me, Egyptian builders. He said, that's good. He said, but what about Herbert there, the censor, sitting by the camera? I said, well, I won't say it. I will just mouth it, and we'll wild track it, and we'll have it. So he said, fine. So we shot it. And I moved my lips, and the sound man said, oh, sorry, Lewis, we'll have to go again. I did not hear it. Lewis is saying, shut up. Anyway, we got away with it. And friends in Egypt said it actually was the biggest laugh in the movie.
Sorry.
I was on holiday. I'd spent Christmas and New Year, Christmas in New York and then New Year with Harry Belafonte, and we'd gone to Aruba the New Year. We'd spent a month there, and one day Harry said, we're leaving the families here and we're going on a plane over to another island to look at some land. And we got to the other island, and he said, oh, there's a nice casino here, by the way, which was the entire, he said, I've got to go and look at some land. And he went off and he left me at the casino. And he came back and it was 5 o'clock, and he said, the pilot says that unless we get back to Aruba before dark, we can't land. And I said, when will it be dark? He said, in about 15 minutes. I said, you mean we? We can't land in Aruba. He said, no, we have to stay the night. So I said, fine. And we stood at a crap table all night throwing dice and losing and losing and losing. And they wouldn't let us take our jackets off or our ties. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, Harry said, to hell with this. Off came our jackets. And our luck changed. We got all our losses back and more. We left with smiles on our faces, which were taken off rather quickly when we landed back in Aruba, and our wives wanted to know why we had not come back the night before. It really is. It's quite ridiculous. Slapstick. It all worked for me.
Every woman for herself, remember?
Still, you did save my life.
We all make mistakes, Mr. Bond.
I think that Marvin Hamlish's arrangement of music for this were quite exceptional. Very, very good. I remember him in an apartment behind the Ritz at about 2 in the morning, wanting to play me the theme tune. And I've just thought of all the neighbors, and he really hammered out the piano. Great song. And all the music in the film is good. The music, of course, is now Lawrence of Arabia, which works very well. In fact, becomes an homage to David Lean. I've been back and visited these places since shooting. The time we were shooting, I didn't really have the time to appreciate the history, which is probably just a word because I had been walking around on the screen with my mouth wide open. It was quite fascinating. I suppose it's difficult for an actress coming on to a Bond, you know, because everybody else has been there before. And they have to feel they probably have to work a little harder to be accepted. I remember one actress, the director would always it was the two of us going in different places, which is usually the case. And the director would always say, you know, Roger, you go, meaning both of you, you go there. Well, I said, well, why do I always have to follow him? And the director said, oh, he's James Bond. Oh.
It's also very important.
What else?
When necessary, shared bodily warmth.
It's the part I like. Is this really what they do in Siberia?
Yes, but not how they do it.
When you're working with an actress as beautiful as Barbara, it is not difficult to look lustful.
You're not trying to take advantage of me, are you?
But there again, you've always got 40 or 50 people sitting watching you.
Just when it was getting interesting.
I remember only too well this sequence doing the close-ups when Barbara had to blow whatever it was into my face to dope me. And unfortunately, the talcum powder or whatever they'd put in the cigarette shot out always into my eye and became an exceedingly painful day for having my eye washed out after about 4 takes. And then when we finished this day shooting, we went on to shooting the sequence that was in the van that we've just seen, the craziness of movies. Cubby loved to cook, of course, Italian food. What else would a man called Broccoli want to do? And I can remember when we were shooting by the temples here at Karnak, he produced bowls and bowls of wonderful, wonderful pasta, a great sauce. He loved to do that for the crew.
Penny?
Good morning, Jane.
Oh, fancy seeing you here, Lois.
Must have been quite a party.
Boring, Moneypenny. As a matter of fact, I dropped off.
Looking at the film now, I really appreciate the amount of work that Ken Adam and the art department all the painters did, meticulously reproducing this art on the wall. It is quite beautiful.
Our respective governments have agreed to pool their resources to find out what happened to our submarines.
We have entered a new era of Anglo-Soviet cooperation. And as a sign of Russian good faith.
And also, it was very good of, I think, the Russians at that time to let their spies have such wonderful wardrobes.
It's useless. I examined it on the boat.
I assure you it is quite genuine.
Except that the vital technical information has been taken out. This was only intended to whet our appetites. Maybe Q can make something out of it.
I think this is one of the wonderful things about Bond, the Bond films, is that Q turns up everywhere and he has an elaborate laboratory. This, for example, there was Ken Adam had found this magnetic levitation that a company near Pinewood was making. And they were producing the train that was able to run, or the tram that was able to run on a track without actually touching it, with the forces of magnetism pulling and pushing. I'm sure this was one of those days when I was busy jokingly rewriting Q's dialogue and driving him mad.
Everybody ready? Right. Now, we're pretty certain that this drawing was drafted in Italy. The size corresponds with a Venetian octavo, and the typeface is an Italian one. Now, note the slight upward stress on the transversals.
Q, what's that mark there?
Huh? Oh, probably a show-through of something the drawing was resting on when it was photographed. Must have been done in a hurry.
Can you enlarge it?
Wait a minute.
Oratory. What is that?
It's another word for chapel.
Looks a bit like a bishop's mitre.
It is a fish. That is the symbol of the Stromberg shipping line.
Karl Stromberg? But he's one of the richest men in the world.
One of the principal capitalist exploiters of the West, sir.
So it's not oratory, it's laboratory. Stromberg has a marine research laboratory. On Corsica, I believe.
Well done, James.
Actually, sir, it is in Sardinia.
That's brilliant. I'm certain that two such perceptive talents will enjoy working together in Sardinia, and that it will help to make Anglo-Soviet cooperation a reality.
Somebody once asked me, how was it that we went from Egypt to Sardinia by train? I didn't have an answer, except Cubby liked trains, and a train set in every film.
Train. I always enjoy it. I remember when
Oh, what do you remember?
I was going to talk.
And trains are very good, actually, pictorially, because you always have a very nice soundtrack with and always a little movement.
No.
And instead of cutting from one city to another, you take up the time with a little exposition, and in this case, possibly a little romance.
Sleep well.
And a little mayhem.
Good night.
Good night.
If you wonder how some fight scenes are done, how you rehearse in a set that you're going to eventually destroy. Or you happen to be on the same stage that you're shooting another sequence. Well, what happens is that the art department will rig up a mock set for the stunt director, the stuntmen, to work in and rehearse. Because, as I've said before, fights have to be choreographed. You can't just say, oh, well, we're going to go from there and there. They have to be rehearsed, otherwise somebody gets hurt. Really hurt, not just as they are on film. That, incidentally, was painful. I love the shot in this where his hand is across my face, that giant hand. I don't know who thought of breaking the lamp and short-circuiting his teeth. I have heard a number of people say, that was my idea. And I don't know. You see, in a way, Jaws is slightly Bondish. He likes to be a little like James Bond himself, dusting himself down, not being too perturbed. I think if you're going to play a villain, you have to play a villain as though you're the hero. Evil men don't really think they're evil, they think they're right.
And share bodily warmth. Nothing about keeping out of drafts. Still enjoy traveling by train?
You saved my life. Thank you, James. I'm sorry. Why don't you lie down and let me look at it? What can we use for a bandage?
How about this?
No, it's interesting that we found this horse and carriage waiting by the train station. I say that because Sardinia is an island, and there is no bridge connecting it to the mainland, and there is no long tunnel either. The Lotus Esprit, another toy from Q. The Lotus is a very Bond-looking, very attractive-looking car. As a practical vehicle to work with, was a little awkward because working with a vehicle for stunts, you have to be prepared to wait with the engine running, wait for a cloud to move, or wait for the traffic to be stopped, and then you have to be ready to go forward. The problem with the Lotus was it overheated. It wasn't made for standing still and idling over. And apart from that, they wanted to charge me full price if I wanted to buy one.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno, signora.
You have a reservation for me. The name is Sterling.
Ah, yes. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling.
Valerie Leon, who worked on a number of Saint episodes with me and The Persuaders.
And 2 bedrooms.
Moneypenny being a little over-efficient. Do you have any messages for me? Thank you. Excellent.
Where we're shooting now is one of my favorite locations. This is Calidevolpe, and you cannot imagine that you have this wonderful hotel, excellent food, and you get out of bed and you get made up and you just walk down to this little beach, and they have a wet bike, a jet bike, ready for you to take off. You come home at the end of the day, take off your makeup, have a wonderful dinner, some wonderful wine, and these beautiful surroundings.
How do you do? This is my wife.
This is Carolyn Munro,
On holiday here?
Where there's an ocean.
very beautiful English actress.
Never on holiday. Can we offer you a drink before we go?
I think this is one of the clever things about Lewis Gilbert, is that he has other things going on that are not just... They weren't on the written page, but already there is a jealous look flashing between the two women. Not scripted, but Lewis thought it in his mind, and this is what went on the screen. In the scene where we picked up the loaders, I just remembered that as I said, being this wonderful hotel, I just get out of bed and get paid up and go down onto the beach and start the scene. But the one sequence where we were picking up the Lotus, I had to get over there from the hotel, and I was going to get made up when I got there and got dressed. And so I was fairly scruffy. My hair wasn't combed. I knew it would get combed when I got to the set. And as I stood there, somebody put a plastic cup of coffee in my hands, and I was standing there drinking, and all of a sudden, there were ropes to keep people back, but somebody got through, this little lady, and she sort of pushed my coffee cup to one side, and she looked up at me and she said, "Jesus, you've changed."
Oh, I wonder if you'd mind showing my wife around while I'm with Mr. Stromberg.
Of course. This way.
Thank you. Now, don't be a bother to Naomi, darling. I'll be back soon.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Stromberg prefers not to shake hands. It's the 3rd button.
Thank you.
The beauty of a Ken Adams set is that there is no sense that there's going to be a rail to protect you when you walk down. It's there, and it is spectacular. It's wonderful construction.
Why do we seek to conquer space when 7/10 of our...
This is my first meeting, of course, with Curt Jürgens, my friend, my enemy in this, Stromberg. Plot: he does not like to shake hands. Web fingers. Which is why he lives at the bottom of the ocean.
Welcome someone with a mutual interest.
An extraordinary number of rare species.
It's an interesting point that ever since Dr. No, all the villains in Bond seem to be wearing a Nehru jacket. I don't know whether it is the case in all the Bond films. But if anybody is an aficionado of Bond and they know these things, I would love to hear about it.
Handsome but deadly.
Not really, save your stamps.
I see you know your subject, Mr. Sterling.
One tries. You have a remarkable establishment here, Mr. Stromberg.
I'm somewhat of a recluse. I wish to conduct my life on my own terms and in surroundings with which I can identify. That is a privilege of wealth.
Don't you miss the outside world?
For me, this is all the world. There's beauty, there is ugliness, and there is death.
I think you will find this interesting, Mr. Sterling.
An underwater city.
Fascinating, isn't it? The only hope for the future of man.
It didn't occur to me at the time that I first read The Spy Who Loved Me that it would be vastly different to the other two Bonds I'd made, meaning that there was a little more spectacle and more comedic elements to it.
Meet again. I wish you luck with your research.
Well, thank you.
I think that being the first film that Cubby Broccoli did on his own, without a partner, without Irving Allen or without Harry Swordsman, I've never discussed it with him. He might consciously have been trying to say, well, look, I show you I don't really need anybody. And I think he proved he didn't need a partner. He did a splendid job of putting all the elements together in this.
Darling, you should look at this model. It's beautiful.
Ernie Day, who was responsible for directing the action sequence that is coming up now, very, very good technician again. I mean, Bond, this is the wonderful thing about Cubby, that he got great technicians around him, which I think is the secret of being a producer. You've got to produce the best. And as the title song says, nobody does it better.
Let them get ashore and then kill them.
Bill Cartledge, who was associate producer on this, had worked with Lewis on a number of things as assistant director and associate producer, and was a great asset to the filming. Lewis relied on him a great deal.
It's possible. All we know for sure is the 2 nuclear submarines are missing.
With merchandising, which was a big part of Bond, and a big part of any movie today that is being aimed at a mass market, I don't remember ever being approached to approve an action doll with my likeness. I had a good life. My family had a good life.
James.
I'm not complaining. I sign these boxes which contain action figures and action cars, and they tell me they're worth something on eBay. I never kept one of those things myself. I am always being asked by 100,000 charities, could we have a Bond gadget from you? I never took the props away. I wasn't allowed to take the gadgets home. The wardrobe, that's long gone. I've signed so many ties and dress shirts. But I think people have the idea that you've got this warehouse somewhere that's full of things. Crazy. So please don't write in and ask for me to send you a Bond gadget.
All those feathers and he still can't fly.
James!
Yes, I know. Don't tell me.
There's Jackie Cooper leaning out of the back of the car. Jackie Cooper, who did The Fall from the top of the Anderson House Museum in Cairo. George Leach was the stuntman on the other side of the car. George Leach's daughter, Wendy, is married to Vic Armstrong, who also was a very good stuntman and very good stunt arranger and second unit director. When something like this happens, comic relief, someone is invariably having a drink. Again, Richard Keel Jaws being Bond. I love that shot. Helicopters are so effective when they suddenly appear. I was directing an episode of The Saint, which was supposed to take place at prison Dartmoor. And Donald Sutherland was a villain in it. And he was supposed to, it was one of those old plots where Simon Templar gets himself sent to prison so that he can share a cell with somebody and get information from him. And then we have to get out of the prison, so we escape using a helicopter. So we're a work party shooting in a quarry near Austria Studios. And I had said I had all the extras. I knew nothing about what a prison was like. I said, anybody had any experience of prison? And about 4 of the extras said, yeah, we've all done time, we've all done porridge cuff. They were very useful in giving technical advice on the way a work party would behave. And the warders. My stunt double at that time, Les Crawford, said, he said, what? He said, I said, I'll be one of the warders. When the helicopter comes down and you and Donald Sutherland jump into it, because the helicopter wasn't going to touch down, we were just going to have to leap and get aboard. He says, I'll come running, and he said, I'll grab it as it takes off. So I said, fine, that sounds very good. Let's try it. So the helicopter comes down, Donald and I make the run, we leap into it. Here comes Les. He leaps up, he grabs the runner underneath the helicopter, and the helicopter takes off, and it's just going straight up. We haven't got seatbelts on, there are no windows shut. And Donald Sutherland is so carried away with playing this part, he's trying to kick the water off, and he's stamping on Les's hands, and we're 100 feet above the ground. And I said, Donald, I've said cut, and I'm having to shout very loud. It was one of the hairy moments for Les. This scene, this sequence is a favorite with most Bond audiences. They love the idea of the car being a submarine. I like the little touch of turning left.
That's what we come to look at.
All the underwater stuff is shot in the Bahamas. I wish I could say I was there. I was not. As one of the penalties of playing Bond is that you don't get to go to all of the good locations.
Brace yourself.
you know about that?
I stole the blueprints of this car 2 years ago.
Oh.
Do you think we can make it?
The car is going to come out of the water. Of course, the car couldn't be driven out of the water. It just doesn't work. It's not a car that is amphibious. So it was towed up for a certain section, and then I could drive it off. That little baby, by the way, was Richard Keogh's child. Actually, this is the first time we see him in Bond films, but in practically every Bond film that I made, as a man with a wine bottle, being absolutely amazed at what is happening, always doing a double take. Logic says I could not have had a fish inside the car to drop out of the window, but I thought it was a nice Lewis touch.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a message for you.
I think you just delivered it. Thank you.
This is one of Lewis's preferred scenes. I think this is interesting for this particular scene for a Bond film, that the romantic element, which has been growing, suddenly is destroyed when she discovers that it was Bond who killed her fiancé.
I think we should take a closer look at that tanker.
And it becomes, I think it takes the film to another level, another dimension.
There's no need. M is already on.
I think part of the skill of Louis Gilbert's direction is that despite the fact this is an intimate scene, you know, there is a scope, there is a depth with the background that we're shooting against.
About 3 weeks ago, why?
I remember a tribute to Lewis that I was speaking at for the American Academy.
Do you recognize him?
He quoted this scene as being one that he liked very much. For me, he thought that it showed that I did have another dimension. Apart from raising my left eyebrow. I don't think I ever raised an eyebrow as Bond, but it is something that always has stuck by me because I think I was the first one to say it. You know, I have 3 expressions: left eyebrow up, left eyebrow down, clench the jaw.
Either him or me. The answer to the question is yes. I did kill him.
Then, when this mission is over, I will kill you.
That's right. Welcome aboard.
Shane Rimmer, who is the captain of the submarine, we'd worked on a number of things together. Shane also had a writing credit on The Persuaders. One of the number of American actors who live in England.
Yeah, sure.
It's good of you to help us out, Commander.
Got a couple of cabins at your disposal.
Thank you.
Major, you're most welcome to use the shower in my quarters.
You do not have to show me any special favors, Commander.
All the same, I think it might be better if I did.
From Com Sub-Atlantic, sir.
Right.
This is the closest you ever come to nudity in a Bond film, apart from Maurice Binder's titles, which Cubby always said, this is going to get us a certificate we don't want. It is extraordinary to think these are miniatures. It is just extraordinary miniature work and photography. The secret, of course, when you're shooting a miniature in water is the speed that the camera is turning. So the waves must look as though they're crashing along the side.
Target bearing. Mark. Range. Mark. Down scope. One division in high power.
Range, 6,200 yards, sir.
Angle in the bow. Port 50.
Control, torpedo room. Boarding party ready, sir.
It was the first time I ever worked on a submarine in a film. I found it very interesting when we were in Fast Lane and on the nuclear submarine, you know, which is 4 stories, enormous size underneath. And you walk down the corridors. But they told me that when they were at their full depth, you had to turn sideways to walk down the corridors because the pressure just closed the corridors in. I don't think I would like that in real life.
Blow forward, blow aft.
When we actually shot inside the submarine, Alec Mills, the operator, was expected to handhold the camera, the Araflex, as a point of view of being pushed up the torpedo tube, but he wouldn't do the shot while I was still on the submarine because he was afraid that I would shut the door and blast him off, which I would have done. Anything for a laugh. This, again, is extraordinary miniature work. And now the set we're on, the first time that the 007 stage was used. An enormous stage, I don't know how many square feet, but quite a challenge to fill, which Ken Adam did admirably. You think that inside that there were 2 3 full-size submarines, roads on the side with cars going up and down, all this bridge work. Absolutely amazing. The opening day for the stage was on a Sunday, and Harold Wilson at that time was a former Prime Minister, and he came for the opening, and it was 5 days after I had, as I said earlier, the shingles, and I had to get off my sickbed and come in and do the usual 4,000 interviews and try and look alive and entertaining. My reaction to walking on this stage for the first time, I was, as they say, gobsmacked. You know that you're working in a big, expensive film, the best of its kind, a Bond film. And you can never cease to be amazed by some of the things you're confronted with. This wonderful stage, this enormous creation. Cubby was very proud of it. 007 the stage.
Now hear this. Your captain speaking. Open all hatches and proceed quietly onto the casing.
Hurry, Commander! I'm not renowned for my patience.
Okay, 2 ranks. Move it out.
The captain of this ship is Sidney Taffler. Sidney happened to be Louis Gilbert's brother-in-law, married to Louis's wife's sister. And I think the fact that he was a brother-in-law was the only reason that he was allowed to have a moustache, because no captain of a ship has a moustache.
Put the Americans in with the others, Captain. Remove the prisoners.
Don't look up. You're on candid camera.
Complete nuclear missile loading.
Rocky Taylor there in the front. Rocky Taylor was a well-known English stuntman, and his father Larry had also was a stuntman. I worked with him in Africa on Shout at the Devil. He doubled Lee Marvin.
Bring those two prisoners here.
And Rocky I worked with in Saints and Persuaders, in practically every Bond film. There is a team of stuntmen that not a question of not wanting to avoid them. You can't avoid them because they're on every film. They're the best of their kind. One of the disadvantages of working on a giant stage like this is that it is so enormous, you really can't heat it, and also you can't really soundproof it. So every line you deliver has to be what we call post-synced, which means that you go in and to an image on the screen, you time your dialogue to match what you can also hear with usually as a wire track in your earpiece, and you also see your lips moving. And there are various ways of doing it. At Warner Brothers, at Columbia rather, I remember they did it without picture. You just did it to actual timing. Warner's, we always used picture, and everything else I've done we've used picture. The French had another method, which was very good of synchronizing, of signaling when you were about to speak. You get used to all of them. When I was doing The Persuaders, Tony Curtis didn't really want to do post-syncing, and he thought up all sorts of reasons why he wouldn't have to do post-syncing. He'd say, audiences are sophisticated. They understand. I said, we have to do this because there was an aeroplane in my shot and there was not one in yours, and when we cut backwards and forwards, it doesn't match. He said, audiences are sophisticated. They understand these things. So we arranged that we would, and he didn't want to post-sync at night. So we said, all right, can we do it at lunchtime? And at lunchtime, and Johnny Goodman, who was our associate producer, Tony said, all right, I'll do it at lunchtime, but I want champagne and caviar. And so there was champagne actually laid on and smoked salmon sandwiches. And Johnny came in, he looked at this, and he said, well, Tony, you never had it so good.
Instruments of Armageddon.
Sean and I have a lot of laughs together. I remember having dinner a few years ago in London with Sean. And I had a rather croak in my throat. I think it was the time I still smoked cigars, or it just stopped. And Sean and I, we were having dinner, with about 8 of us, very chic restaurant somewhere near Tower Bridge. I remember we went out onto the terrace, just he and I said, Sean, I know you had a problem with your throat. Where did you go? Who looked after you? And he told me the name of this doctor. He said, I will call him in the morning. He said, I'll fix an appointment because he's very difficult to get to see. So I went to see this doctor, and he said to me, well, what's your problem? And I said, that is my problem. So expecting to be diagnosed with throat cancer, of course. And he said, all right, he said, let's have a look. And sort of put things down. And Sean had warned me that they would put a mild anesthetic or something up my nose, and they would be shooting cameras down the back of it. I was dreading all of this. And so Dr. Throat, or whatever his name is, and I opened my mouth, and they said, ah. So I went, ah. No, he said, ah. So, ah. He said, there was nothing wrong with your throat. You're absolutely fine. He said, we'll take an x-ray just to be absolutely sure. Those occasions you want to kiss the doctor. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sean, for sending me to him.
Where's your captain? Here.
Release the other crews, then make for the armory.
Right, follow me, men. At the bubble. Come on, let's go.
Seal the operations room.
This again, of course, is movie trick. You've got a lot of people fighting one another. So you put the enemy in one color and the heroes in the opposite color. It's usually black and white. There was one film I heard where they had all the soldiers charging left to right. And then they said, change their jackets and make them go right to left. So they were the same soldiers charging one another, but they looked as though they were going to hit one another head on. Now you see, all our good guys are in navy blue and white. Villains are red. It's easier to distinguish them. Again, this is the minute you walk on and you see this beautiful set, you know it's going to get destroyed. It must have been heartbreaking for Ken Adam. We come to a sequence, we come at the end of the sequence where it all gets blown up. And I said, where are you going to be for all these explosions, Lewis? He said, I'm going to be up there. And he had this wonderful spot worked out where he was hidden away from all the explosions. I said, well, I think I'm going to be sitting with you. No, you're not. You're going to be in front of the camera. Today, when they make films, they have a video going at the same time in the lens. And so the director can see what is being shot, or is being shot if he's looking at it at the same time. We did not have that luxury when we were doing this. In one sense, I'm rather grateful, because I think that when there is the video there, actors are rather inclined to want to look at it, and time is wasted.
We're still no closer to that control room. Leave it to me, sir.
Andrews, James, Marshal Purvis, follow me.
Needless to say, there are many bruises and many cut fingers, and I remember I almost perforated eardrums with all the guns going off in your ear and the explosions.
That armor plating must be inches thick.
We'll never get through it.
This gets to the armory. What do you reckon to find?
I made a film in 1958 at Warner Brothers called The Miracle, which I played the Duke of Wellington's nephew. Carol Baker was the star of the film. And I had to lead the charge of the Battle of Waterloo. Irving Rapper, who directed many Betty Davis movies, was sort of more intellectual a director than an action director. You got Gordon Douglas, who was a very, very good action director, very, very gruff, to direct the second unit, or to direct the Battle of Waterloo sequence, in which I had to lead the charge. And my costume was white doverskin breeches, very, very tight, sort of black riding boots, and beautiful red tunic, and a big brass helmet with plumes, rather like an upside-down chicken on my head, and I had to lead the charge. And the special effects said, and I'm also carrying a sword, a very sharp sword. And the effects say, right, there'll be a few explosions, Raj, when you lead off the charge. I said, right, where are they? They said, well, that tree is going to blow. I said, when is the tree going to blow up? They said, we'll blow it up after you've left, and then that tree and that one over there and this one, and the camera was going to do about a half-mile tracking shot with me leading the charge, and 4 lengths behind me, the mass of the British Army on the cavalry. So action, and off I charged, and the first tree exploded, but it didn't explode after I passed it. It exploded right as I was on it. And the horse shied somewhat, which threw my feet out of the stirrups. And now I was trying to cling on to the horse with my knees, and the buckles on the saddle were just sticking into my leg, but I really had to press in, and afterwards I found that there was blood there, and I am now out of control, and the horse is charging. I know that I'm going to come off, and these horsemen are going to come, the camera is going to come on top of me, and I'm screaming, help! And my teeth are white, and of course there is no sound. And when they're looking at it, Steve Trilling, who was running the studio for Jack Warner at the time, said, God, the guy is braver than Errol Flynn. It looked as though I was smiling with the white teeth. Oh, what a... Not a good... I don't like working in cavalry charges. I don't like big battle scenes. Not to be in. They're good to look at. Martin Grace is going to ride on top of that ball. Well, I did a couple of bits, but he did the long shot. Riding the golden ball was quite uncomfortable. I felt I was going to slip backwards off, which I did.
Sir, what is it?
There is Cubby's friend down there who turns up in most Bond films. The guy who looks like George Kennedy. One of the things I really hate in a movie is having to run. And you have to try and look as though you can move with speed and are fairly graceful about it. But I can remember I was about 5 years old, and 4 or 5 years old. My mother liked to go to a whist drive with a lot of other ladies, and they had this guilt one day, presumably, that the children were being neglected or ignored, and that they arranged a sports day. And I was entered for a race. And we went off, and the gun went, and we ran. And the race finished, and I was still running. I was nowhere near the finishing line. I couldn't run. And I eventually got to the judges' stand, and I stood there, and I waited till they gave me a bag of toffees. And my motto in life has always been, you don't have to win the race to get a bag of toffees. At RADA, the Royal Academy, you learn to walk across the stage, how to sit properly, as regards how to open and shut a door, how to time your opening and shutting of doors to time with the line. Little bits of technique you have to learn as you plough through our industry.
Take the position of the first submarine.
This, I think, shows the brilliance of James Bond's mind, that he can look at a complicated instruction book and work out how something is done. And it's also good that the villains actually have diagrams and working models so that Bond knows what's going on. And at the same time, so does the audience.
Missile control, this is the captain. We have a change of target.
I was making the Saint, and I remember, I think the Daily Express was having a competition for a suggestion, who should, which they're still doing, who should play Bond. And that was about as much as I was aware of the character until Dr. No was about to come out. And my friend Gordon Douglas from Warner Brothers days was brought over to England to direct a film for Cubby and Harry with Bob Hope. Call Me Buona. And we had dinner, and he said, these two guys, they showed me a movie last night. And I said to them, are you going to sneak it? I said, what was the film? He said, it was James Bond, Dr. No. What I knew about Bond was that there seemed to be a competition looking for this man. I'd never read about James Bond book. A year or so later, I became friends with Cubby and Harry through our meeting over the gambling tables. And we became friends, and I saw all the Bond films. They would show them to me in the screening room in Audley Square. I thought they were damn good entertainment. One of the questions that I asked along with who was your favorite Bond girl is what do you think of Pierce Brosnan? What do you think of Timothy Dalton? What do you think of George Lazenby? What did you think of Sean Connery? Did you know Sean Connery? Do you know Timothy Dalton? Do you know Lord George? Do you know? And what did you think of whatever the film was that Timothy did, or Pierce Brosnan? And I say, quite honestly, I have not seen the films, so I can't tell, which is a wonderful way of getting out of it, because I have seen, pieces. I did see the last Bond with Pierce Brosnan. Now, I've known Pierce for years. His wife, Cassandra Harris, who sadly died, was in one of the earlier Bonds with me. And Timothy Dalton, I knew his work and thought they were both absolutely excellent actors. In fact, they were both people that I said to Cubby before I left, would make excellent Bonds. I was hoping that one of them would say, well, listen, here's 10% for putting the word in, but it didn't come. Timothy and Pierce are both very accomplished actors.
Rudder amidships. Ahead 2/3.
Rudder amidships ahead, 2/3 on.
Left 7 degrees rudder.
Left 7 degrees rudder, aye.
This is extraordinary footage. Miniature work and real that all blend in together. Magic of movies. When the film opens, you have some idea of whether it's going to be successful or not. You know the reaction, the premiere night, and the reaction from the first screening, you know, with the press screening, and the reviews. By the time I was doing Bond, it already had an audience, thanks to Sean Connery. And of course, it's very satisfying to know that you're in a film that is doing big box office business. It means that you're going to get a good table in a restaurant, and the producers are going to offer you other movies, and your agent answers the phone.
How far would you say?
About 10,000 yards, sir.
Commander? Close it. I just got this signal from the Pentagon on instructions from the Security Council. Destroy Atlantis fast.
What does fast mean?
Battle station's 5 minutes.
There's torpedoes?
Yes.
He has Anya on there.
I know, James. I'm sorry.
I have to get her off.
How?
The equipment Q sent for me. Can I have it?
Sure. Martin. Sir? That package for Commander Bond. Bring it in quick.
I need an hour.
What, that comes from the top?
40 minutes.
You're gonna get me court-martialed. Okay. 1 hour. Come in.
We're about to see the famous wet bike. Nobody had ever seen one on the screen before. This is what I liked about doing Bond, that you had these wonderful toys that nobody's seen. You're the first to get them. I had to learn to ride it, which was fine on the beach, Sardinia, come out of my room, go down, pair of trunks, get on the bike. But for filming, I had to be in this uniform, made up, hair looking nice, get on and off the bike without getting wet. Sounds easy, and is reasonably easy until you're expected to ride the bike out to sea with nothing in the background because you're being shot from a helicopter.
Mr. Bond, I've been expecting you. Stay away.
And you have no contact at all with the helicopter. They have said that they will come alongside you and come round in front. what they had not taken into account was that there would be a downdraft from the helicopter's blades. And that was pushing the bike away from underneath me. And I had no idea the prayers I was saying to save me, because I knew that if I went into the water, I had to get all the way back in a wet uniform, get into a dry one, have a new makeup put on. It was easy in Moonraker when we were falling out of the hovercraft, the Piazza San Marco. This was a long way from the dressing room. Looking at this scene brings back very painful memories. In fact, I'm squirming on my seat looking at it. The idea is that Stromberg is going to shoot a missile under the table, up a tube at me.
Yours too. And faster than you think.
And the audience will know this. And I said to Lewis, the idea was that I was doing that standing behind the chair. I said there'd be far more suspense if I sit down in the chair. Well, the chair had been prepared with a steel back for me to be actually behind it. So when the explosion went off, I was protected. Well, idiot me said, no, I think the suspense was there if I'm sitting in the chair. And I went, and the special effects, whipping their little piece of wire across the nails and setting off the charges, set it off just a little too quick. And I was really blown out of that chair. The explosion went. And I was on fire at the back. I had a very uncomfortable month, having to go down and have the nurse change the dressings on my rear end. I've often said I have 3 holes where most people have 1. The crew thought it was hysterical till they saw the flames. I think it's a lovely gag, the smiling, just to get him to expose his steel teeth for the magnet.
How does that grab you?
We're 5 minutes overdue, Captain.
James. Stromberg?
Dead. So are we, unless we get out of here fast.
Max bearings and shoot.
I remember the sequence where this whole set is about to be blown up, and my makeup man came to me and he gave me a little package. Barbara was trying to look at it, and there were earplugs. I was putting earplugs in because I knew there were going to be a big explosion. She said, "What's that?" I said, they're earplugs. You know, there's going to be a lot of bangs here. Oh. I said, now, when we run, stay very close to me because they're going to be really big. Oh, she said, well, I thought that if I was near you, it would be safe. I said, no, I'm the one they're trying to kill. So you've got to stay very close because I'm going to be running and moving fast. Then we got into this water. Water is so uncomfortable to work in for any time. You may think that I never had to wash after this scene. I think it's interesting that we got into that little place through a hole and it was dry. Great gag. Great visual. Jeffrey Keane, who always plays the minister. I see he's given a name, Sir Freddie Gray. I worked with Jeffrey's father, Malcolm Keane, who was a very fine old actor. I worked with him in a play in 1954, play just before I went to MGM, play called I Capture the Castle. But Jeffrey, one day, said that he was sitting in his flat, and it was the week that a number of theatrical knights had died, or that month, including Olivier. And he said there was a plumber doing something in the flat, and he walked past his desk a couple of times, and finally he said to Jeffrey, he says, "You're an actor, aren't you?" Jeffrey says, "Yes." He said, "Dropping like bleeding flies, aren't you?" It was a very good idea that Richard Keel should be saved to come back again in Moonraker.
They're never going to know.
Audiences were relieved, I think.
You think there's a danger of the bends?
Well, it's very convenient the way they always happen to be near. There's either a Cameron close by or they are nearby for Bond's final scene.
.007, Triple X. Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad.
Having seen it again, I still think it was the best of the Bond films I made. I think showed what a really, really good director Lewis Gilbert is. My name's Roger Moore. I was Bond, and I did the talking through this commentary. One of the occasions when I didn't have a double. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having watched. I'll be back if you care to buy another DVD.
Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it half as good as you. Baby, baby, darling, you're the best. Baby, you're the best.